Well, let me see. Am I on? Rebecca, I love you, and thank you so much for saying that. This is just greater than I can ever imagine to be a voice to so many, and I really do count it every day as a blessing. I do not take it for granted, and so thank you for first and foremost coming here and being a part of this conversation today. That's really what I would like to talk about a little bit. I'm going to talk about it from an actor's perspective, but I'm also going to talk to you a little bit from a director's perspective. I'm going to try to give you real practical tools to use. And I think that's important because so often we don't get the practical tools that we need and that we need to really focus on to sharpen ourselves, better our craft, and put those into action to actually get the job. And I want to give you some, even some percentages, and I've got good friends. Bev's here today, Mike is here. There's different people I'm probably going to call on. And then I'm really going to try to go through this stuff as quickly as I can because I want to give this time back to you to ask me questions about my journey, about Hollywood, about directing, about all of those things. And so I think so often, if you're like me, you go to certain events and you never really get to ask some of the questions that you really want to ask somebody. So please, that's something I want to make sure that we get to today. But before I do that, I'd really love for us all to pray over this time in our conversation together because it has to be about what God wants me to share with you first and foremost. I have an agenda, as we all would. We put our stuff together. We hope it all works out. But I know first and foremost that today I hope to be able to deliver something to you that really is God ordained and not something that's just a technical button that I get to push up here. So if you would join me, please, in prayer, we'll pray and then we'll kick it off, okay? Lord God, thank you so much for allowing us to come here and absolutely focus first and foremost on you. I thank you for each and every person that's here at this conference. I thank you for the talents and gifts you've bestowed upon them. I thank you for just the willingness not only to teach, but to come and be an attendee. And Lord, so often just to come here and receive, that's such a great, great blessing, Lord God, and a privilege. And so we thank you for that, Lord God, so that we can be poured into and go back and pour out into others. And I just pray, Lord, that everything that's coming forth today, whether it's me speaking or questions or whatever this might look like, it's all for you, through you, by you, and that you would just take me a step back and put you forward in this conversation. I pray over this technology that it all works out well, and we just go for it from here, Lord God, but we thank you and we just ask that you would bless our time together in your precious holy name. Amen. So a little bit about, I'm going to, as I jump into this really quick, I want to share with all of you, just quickly as I can, a little bit about me and how I ended up, if you don't know my story, in Hollywood. So I had no plans. You may have heard this. I did not have plans to be an actress. I did not have any plans to be in entertainment or media. When I finally gave my life fully to Christ at 25, my husband and I had started dating at that point, and on our second date, he asked me to go to church, and I was excited. I was a teenage mom. I had had my first baby at a very young age, and so here I was, very excited. I got a great Christian man, and I now have met the Abba Father, Jesus. I've given my life to Christ, and all I can think about is getting married to this godly man, having lots of children, and just being excited about life. That's really all I wanted. My husband and I at that time, as we got married, we ended up starting a coffee shop at our church called Hebrews. And it was really, I know, go ahead and let it all out. We really were excited because it really was supposed to be for people that could come and share, whether it was arts or poems or whatever it was that God was laying on their hearts, so that we could bring entertainment back into the church again. And we couldn't figure out why God was calling us into this place, but we really loved coffee. So, anyway, we had our next, our baby, Levi, and so I was ready. I was like, Levi, here we go, let's have the next child. And as we got into about 2 years from Levi, I was told I couldn't have any more children. And so it was obviously a devastating blow to my plan. And so as I was devastated, broken, and crying out to God, trying to figure out what He was getting ready to do with my life, I went into the coffee shop one day, and a man came in and sat down with his family, and I poured him coffee, and he looked up at me and he said, "Have you ever thought about doing commercials?" I was like, "Okay, God, I'm not sure where we're going with this." And he invited me to come to an audition. And I walked into the audition room. It is what we call a cattle call. It was probably a room of 100 people deep. I had no headshot. I had no resume. I had no idea what it meant to go in and do an audition. I just showed up. And that was all I could do. And I actually got in there, and a really sweet young lady said to me, "You actually need to fill out the paperwork there, sign in, and take that and go memorize your lines and wait until they call you." Hey, I can do that. I'm never going to get this job anyway. So, as I went in and just threw this audition right at the wind because there was nothing in me that was going to get this job, I literally, the next thing I know, God gave me this job. But here's the thing that I want to bestow upon you. When it is actually God's plan, He does things far greater than we can ever imagine. And so there's sometimes, instead of just stepping out of the boat, we actually have to jump. But we have to know that it's God's will and His plan for our life. But the moment that we go into motion, we also have to prepare so that we can be the best at our craft that we can possibly be. So I immediately went in to try to figure out headshots, resume, what do I need for coaching, how do I need to train? And so that led me from commercials and being on set, learning set etiquette. When we go into entertainment and media, we have an entire different language we speak. So when you get on set, you really need to understand that there is a different thing that happens, and when they're talking about something and they say back to one, you know what it means. And so I went through this process, and finally in 2009, God called me to Hollywood, and I went to Hollywood. And again, I really made it a priority that I was going to train. And so I was introduced to a man a couple years prior to that, John Kirby, who is an incredible acting coach in Hollywood. Beverly knows him very well. And I went in, and my whole entire focus at that point in time was to literally study acting, to understand what it meant to break down a script, what it meant to get up on and to learn how to be off book, to use the skill to memorize lines. I mean, we would get plays that were 20, minutes long. So think about that page-wise and how much these plays you're having to memorize, because every week when we stepped in, we had to know immediately. It wasn't just the lines that I had to know. I had to be in rehearsals, and I had to be preparing these characters, and then I had to get up every week and actually put it up in front of people. That is an intense process. And so what I want to share with you today is a little bit about that process and how we go from being in a position where we desire to be talent to actually going in and looking at the tools that we need to go to the next process of actually getting the education that we need so that we can put it into use when God takes us out and sends us out. So, how many of you have actually studied the craft, because it is a craft, of acting? How many of you studied? Awesome. What have you studied? Is it Meisner, Uta Hagen? What have you studied?
A little bit of everything at Shorter. So a degree in acting. So I've studied Meisner and Stanislavski.
Awesome. And improv, scene study, on camera. Marissa, what have you studied?
Comedy drama workshops, because I think I'm more of a dramatic actress than a comedic actress, so I like to focus on the comedy as well to make sure I'm exercising that. Meisner, all the above.
That's good. That's really good. Awesome. Okay. How about anybody over here? Who else has studied? Right back here? What kind of acting? Improv, scene study, on camera? Perfect. I love it. I love he's like, that's it. And you? Yes? Okay. Yeah. Stanislavski. Yes. Yes. So I'll tell you, okay, we're going to all pray for Shari's computer here. I love these women, but my first and foremost to you as we go into this conversation is just pray. Okay, like this was the picture for me. I said, this is what it is. It's all about praying and seeking counsel. And right here, I said, this is a great scripture for all of us to think about. As we go into this journey, what is the scripture, some of the things that really stand out to you that God really bestows upon you? Because not only are you going to go in, and we're going to talk about this studying, you're going to be in the midst of a lot of people as you're going through the process, but then what does it look like for when you get to set? And so one of my favorites is, in the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And so when we talk about that, there are so many elements and pieces to that. Really, when you step onto a set or you step into an acting class, your first and foremost, in my opinion, is that you're there to shine bright to others and you're there to glorify God. And that, my friend, is also being diligent to learn your craft and to be the best that you can possibly be, to hone it in, showing up with memorized lines, understanding not only how to read a script, but break a script down and go on a journey with the characters. And that's a really important part of the process. I go and I love acting techniques, and, because there are different techniques, and, I picked this with October Baby because it's also, she's standing on stage, and stage acting is very different than actual screen acting. And so it's also a matter of, what kind of performer are you? And if you've had a lot of stage acting, you really, I think I always can tell usually if I'm watching a casting or I'm in the director's seat at this point, I can usually tell if somebody has been a stage actor versus a film actor because of the way that they either project or they're bigger or there's something that's happening. Whereas when we're in film, it's really becomes, you don't want to be robotic, right? Like there are motions, but there's a different dynamic that happens because you're drawing people in through, here versus trying to reach the back of a stage. So one of the things here, hopefully you can see this. If you can't, I'm going to see if I can get this pulled up a little bit bigger. Let me see if this will go a little bit. Can you see all this? Woohoo! All right. So I pulled up 8 different types of methods in the approach to acting. I want to tell you guys, I'm not going to break all of these down. I just want you to realize how many different techniques they actually are. I have to tell you, there's a lot of people out there that say you have to learn this type of acting style or you have to learn this type of acting style. I myself personally, I am one of those learners that I learn differently. The way that I learn wasn't actually, I didn't really get a whole lot of help through the educational process until I got to college. And the professor actually recognized how I needed to learn. And so it was about touching something, feeling it, and then I would never forget it. Whereas if I had to actually digest it in a certain way, it didn't stay here. And I needed it to stay here to translate it to here to learn. And so my thought in this is what I've done is I've taken some of these techniques and I've used them in the way that they really do help me to influence my characters. And so when I was training with John Kirby, he really worked through the Uta Hagen techniques, and I am really one of those people that truly believe that, and Stanislavski, right, it's this listening, but it's being in the moment, it's understanding, it's learning. And when we go through this process of how to actually learn, it's a really good place for you to go through and study these different techniques and go, that might be a way for me to learn this. And then maybe just even going and testing out some of the classes. Maybe there is somebody that teaches Meisner, and that's something that really resonates with you through the process. Or you might be that person that says, man, I trained under Meisner technique, but I love the idea of Uta Hagen because when I get into a scene study situation or onto set, I really need to be able to learn how to go in fully engaged, to pick up a cup and have a conversation, drink out of the cup, and be in the moment of being able to deliver lines and be truthful in it, right? So there's different ways to kind of marry those things. And so for me, that was, when I studied with John Kirby, that was really the technique. We went in and we really worked out a scene in the room and really understand everything that was part of the moment of this, the scene or the play that we were putting up. And so it was really an incredible experience because what I believe is it helped me to facilitate then when I got onto set, the ability to understand what it was actually like to be in the moment of dealing with something. So often I think I get to set, and as a director I say this all the time, my actors step on, they've got their lines memorized, but they're supposed to be maybe putting on a jacket, or they're supposed to be doing something, or maybe they decide that it's for the character that they want to do something, right? They're putting a hat on, or they're writing out a note, or they're doing something, and all of a sudden they've practiced the line so many times, and they haven't practiced the action with the line, and they can't do it. And now all of a sudden we're kind of going, ooh, what's happening here? So we have to be able to kind of then backtrack a little bit to understand why they've memorized the lines so many times, they're saying it a certain way that when they go in to do something, it's almost impossible for them to make it look real, feel real. So those are some of the techniques, and I think they're important for you to walk through to see what is really something that works for you. And I think you can pull a little bit from all of them, or at least for me, that's something that I feel like I've done. These are a few of the books. I know when I went to work with John, one of the books that he would share would be the Uta Hagen Respect for Acting. And nowadays, if you're on YouTube, you can watch a lot of these incredible instructors or teachers that you can actually watch them that when they were on the theater stage with talent, performing with them and giving them the feedback as well. So I think that's really interesting. I love that. Where do I start? Classes. So these are some of the skills that I think are really important. Where do I start in the class section? On camera, scene study, audition techniques, improv, skill, when we're honing in on something, musical instruments, vocal training, dialect training, sports, stage combat, parkour. Listen, there are so many things. So it is a place where you can literally say to yourself, there's so much for me to learn. This is exciting. I mean, if I was like 25 years younger, I'd be doing parkour all day long. Like, you wouldn't even get me. I'd be like stage combat, parkour. I mean, it would be off the charts. So I just want to encourage you to not just think about getting the role, but I want you to go out and figure out how to train to get the role so that when somebody comes and looks at your resume and watches your reel, they go, man, that person really has everything that I can use in this movie. And you feel comfortable. Justin and Amber, they do their classes and the improv and stuff, and she's back here. I mean, I'm telling you what, you want to go work with people like that really literally are putting you on camera, that you're learning, you're improving with, and then you get to go out and you get to go film something. And they're not only teaching you those things in their classroom, but then they're taking you out and putting you in a position to learn the actual lingo that you need to have when you hit the set. Online resources, there's Masterclass, YouTube, Actors Access. I'm going to show you a little bit about this. Backstage, Christian casting, faith-based casting. It's really important for you to understand the tools that are out there and the resources that you need to use as talent to submit your work. It is a job. It is a job. And when you are, if that is your goal, you are training, think about this. If you're going to be a surgeon or a lawyer, or you're going into the army or whatever it is, you're in training. You don't get to go in and do the surgery until you've gone through the process and you've really worked out the situation and the kinks so that you know how to do something. And let me tell you, one of the other reasons why is because that way when you get onto set, all of a sudden you have a confidence in you that when you come into that, you can actually deliver what it is that you have been hired to deliver. And the interesting thing is, like when Alex was saying on the panel today, they had to let people go because they didn't actually know it. Let me tell you something, don't you ever lie on a resume. Don't you ever lie. I have people all the time that want to get the job and they'll say, oh, I can play golf. I can ride a horse. I can skateboard. Hey, I'm telling you what, if you get hired for that job and they want you to go out there and hit a club, go play a round of golf and they're going to know really quick that you've lied about what you can and cannot do. And now you have just wasted a whole lot of money, a whole lot of time, and your Christian shining bright, whoo, don't do it. So look to these things. You want to be in the know also about what is being cast out there. There's IMDb. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. It's worth the investment to look at IMDb Pro, and especially as Christians, because if you are going onto your Actor Access and faith-based casting and you're actually putting all of this into practice and you're uploading every day and going through the breakdowns, you want to be able to then also flip over and look at who these people are. And in most of the places, if you go right to IMDb Pro, you can click on that and find out who the director is, who the producer is, what kind of work have they done, what are they involved in. And you get a really good idea very quickly who you're now going to go audition for. It's a great, great tool to use. One of my favorites, this is for you, Bev. It's all about Jesus, right? He's loving on us through the process. So these, I threw a few of these up here. If you can see, I just pulled a couple different pictures. And so the other part of this process is so often in time when we're casting, I can't tell you how many times I've had people walk into the room and, Bev usually casts for me. And so people are submitting online or whatever. I'll never forget, we had this one young woman, she came in, we had gotten the headshot in advance, and we were like, this is our girl. This is it. This is our girl. And she walked in the room, and she didn't look anything like her headshot. Like zero. And so we all kind of sat there, and we were literally like, the poor girl, we're doing this the whole time going... And so what you want to do is you want to really make sure that you look like your headshot, okay? It's very important. And we also go through this process of looking at these young ladies on here. You go everything from a little bit of makeup and a nice background to very young and youthful. If I told you how old these, the two twins are here, you probably wouldn't believe me. But the beautiful thing about this process is be young as long as you can. I will not emphasize that more. I have young girls that call me all the time. The next thing, they're sending me pictures of all this makeup and stuff, and I'm like, your whole objective is to look really pretty and look really youthful. And it's the same thing for you guys. Like, be who you are and show who you are in these films or in your pictures. Because that picture... Let me tell you something, and Bev we talked a little bit about this, is that picture is actually the very first tool that's going to get you the audition. Very first thing. And if you're one of how many, Bev? A couple hundred? Thousands. That better pop. And so, there's an interesting thing that kind of goes on with some of these pictures. Now, I think that's something to keep in mind. Now, one of these with Justin is darker, but I'll tell you what I loved about this picture was that it really illustrated the character that I was looking for a particular project. And so when he went through to his database on Actors Access, my assumption is he had probably a good 4 or 5 pictures, read the character role. It's not overdone in any way, shape, or form. Now, I would have loved it to be maybe a hair bit lighter. I think it might be a little dark, right? So when it's going up against X amount of guys. But I can tell right away that this guy is probably, I need to see him. He fit my role and he's not overdone. And also the next guy to him, when he submitted, I was looking for this really clean-cut All-American. And so when he submitted, I can absolutely see a clean-cut All-American. And then I got the little boy on the end over here who's kind of like, do we know if he's good or is he bad? I don't know, but let's bring him in because I really want to know. That's a question, right? And I'll tell you, a lot of times even too, people will say to me, you know, I really liked your smile in it, and when we worked together for all these months, I want to know that you're a nice person. Really? But yeah. So there's just certain things, and you can tell certain things about these characters, but what I love too, and if you go back to the girls, there's a pop in the eye, even, you know, with Adam here in the center, and I'm just going to tell you, so Levi, that's my youngest son on the end. I can't tell you how many auditions this kid got off of that. And people didn't know if he was good or bad. But what they wanted to know was who he was. And they wanted to bring him in because they thought right away. He was on short lists for Peter Berg all the time that did Friday Night Lights, and he was up for a movie with Chris Pine, and he was pinned for a Justin Bateman show. And he was... But there was something about the image that people went, oh, I need to know who this kid is. These are a little distorted, and I'm sorry about that. I was trying to pull some of these. I personally loved, I loved the images in both of these. They all spoke to me, and they all stood out to me. And I mean, Bev may be looking at different things, absolutely, when she's casting. For me, though, if she was to show me these pictures for people that I was looking at for specific roles and I had X amount in front of me, all of these would speak to me. They would all speak to me, and I would need to see each and every one of these people. It gives me an idea of who they are, some of their strengths. Maybe there's the emotional, you know, this little girl in the middle, is she good? Could she be emotionally broken? Or maybe she's just really sweet. But it speaks to me. So I encourage you, and I encourage you to think about colors that pop out on you, and the backgrounds that pop out on you, and things that really make you look good. The other part of it is try to understand about yourself what actually your skin tone really looks like in front of some of these backdrops. Preparation. Memorize your lines. I cannot tell you enough. As an actor, it is your job. And if you come to set and I'm on an 18-day shoot and you don't know your lines when we get onto a set, we are going to have a problem. We're going to work through it. But what we're doing is we're spending thousands of dollars per minute, per hour, with all of the people who are standing around waiting for you to get your lines down. And then sometimes you might have to get thrown in, and now all of a sudden you're feeling uncomfortable because you don't know your lines, you're not ready to play. And I'm telling you now, like the other people that have learned their lines across from you, you owe it to them. If they're showing up prepared and ready to go, you need to show up prepared and ready to go. And word travels really fast. It travels really fast of who's ready and who's not. Always allow yourself to be in and live in the scene, to listen. Run your lines out loud. I can't tell you how many times people will do this over and over again in their lines, and they don't say them out loud, and then all of a sudden they come to set, and you start to hear them, and they're like, so all of a sudden I am in like this very something voice. Or they're so loud, so you have to really say them out loud in your own voice. Walk through it. Walk through your house. You know, I start memorizing lines for something and I'm walking through my house and I'm doing my coffee or I'm cleaning, you know, or I'm doing something all the time, but I'm saying them out loud. Run your lines with your scene partner. Step into a scene and be aware and be very courteous. Can we run lines? Hey, you know, I just love to see like what your take is and how we're kind of working through this together. And then on the flip side of that, don't ever coach anyone. Your job as talent is to never, ever coach another actor that's working across from you. It is disrespectful, and it is absolutely not okay to do. Because how would you feel if you coached somebody or if they coached you? All of a sudden, you kind of go down here. So don't do that. Run your lines in the scene, in space and location, which what is a lot of times we call blocking. But if you can actually get into a space and work in there prior to shooting, go in and run those lines. Get familiar with your space. Walk around. Understand where you're at. You know, so when you get in there, you have time to play. You already kind of know, hey, I'm going to go over there. It kind of feels right if I get up here and I want to sit down for a second. Or maybe I'm going to go over there and I'm going to get a glass of water. Maybe I'm going to lean up against this counter. You don't have to plan it out in your head. I would tell you not. But definitely get in your space and live it. Feel it. There's something that brings just a freedom to you. Accident and inspiration. If things happen, let them happen. There are sometimes they are the most magical moments of all on screen. And if you mess up a line or a word or you're like, oh, don't you stop the camera. That's the director's job. Or the first AD. Your job is to stay in that scene and work through it. And allow certain things to happen. I love watching movies where something's happened and you know that the things just dropped on the floor and you're like, was that in the script? Or did that just happen like so beautiful? Allow it to happen. Allow it to happen. But that's when you get to play. Freedom to play. Do it. Do you know how your character begins, arcs, and ends? I think this is very, very important, especially in your feature films. And let me tell you why really quick. This is where when you go to study and you study with scene study coaches, you want to understand and how to break down a script. So your character, 9 times out of 10, will begin one way. It comes into an arc on the movie, and it comes down. And a lot of people go, well, wait a minute, if I only have a couple lines. Actually, in my opinion, and I would think some of you would agree, when you have like a line or two in something, it's really hard for you to find some of those motivations. So you go in and you still prepare and do the best that you can with that. If you're given a lead role or a supporting or whatever, you're on the same journey where you should be breaking down that script. I'm still old school. When I'm acting, I actually print out my script. I have it in a 3-ring binder. I have notes along the side, and I break it down. I walk through it, and I say, where's my character here? And how is she moving through? What are the beats? I break it down by beats so I understand the changes all the way through, and then I get up to the arc, and I want to know where all of a sudden here she is up here. This is that moment, and now we're going to change and kind of come back on the end. It's important for you to know this, and it's also important because of the fact that when you get into actually shooting, most of the time you're not shooting a movie in order. In fact, you could actually shoot the very last scene of the movie on the first day. So preparation is key in that so that you know when you have to start backtracking into your character, you don't want to end up on the cutting room floor. And that happens a lot of the times. It happens because people don't know where they've begun and where they've ended. So when they go into the next scene, they don't know where they ended so they can begin. Now, if this happens, when it comes into the editing bay and as a director, if I can't use the take because you're now all of a sudden in the scene and you're really broken and you're crying, but over here you were laughing and it doesn't match up or something doesn't work, guess what? I have to make the decision that you probably one or the other of those scenes may not make it or maybe both. So this is part of your job in the preparation process is to understand it. It's to understand even, I take Post-its and I put it on, I break it down. If I wear something that's my own, or maybe I've taken something off in a scene and I know that it was there, I'm always making notes and staying on track. Now, when I direct, I primarily use my iPad, and some of you are techie where you can do that with your scenes as well, and you've got your pen out and you're making all of your notes. And I do that when I direct. Everything stays in a file on this, and I make all of my notes on my iPad. So it's a little different. But where is the character in the journey of the story? Very important part of the question to ask. Where are they? When you watch movies, start to watch the characters. Where do they go? Where's the arc? What breaks them? What makes them? What turns them? When they start one way, how do they end? You know, those are important things to start cluing in as you watch these characters in a performance. Editors need to be able to piece a performance together. An editor is the next part of the storytelling process, and if they're really good, they can do a lot. They can take a performance that might have been way down here and they can bring it way up here, or they can actually turn it and reverse it. An editor can make or break you. I'm telling you right now. It's that is truth. And so there's a lot of times we have to go into the editing bay, and I have to sit with my editor and say, "Can you make this better?" And that's just the way it happens. Be authentic in your acting, relax, and enjoy the process. You've been hired because you were the one they wanted. You came in, you auditioned, you knocked it out of the park, and that's what you're stepping in with. You don't have to ask a million questions to figure out if you got the performance right. You're already on your journey because I watched, or the people have watched, or Bev has watched, and there's a place in our mind where we go, that's the character. They can walk in, they can deliver it, and I know I'm on this set of a budget, and I've got this many days, and I know this person's, they've nailed it. They've got it. And all I need to do is massage just a little bit, and we got a great performance. Backstory. I think it's really important, and I think, again, is finding your backstory and asking specific questions of your character. Can you find some character traits that also live within you that you can relate to? Bring pieces of you to the character. I think this is very important. I love this, another one of the shots of Alex with Priscilla and Aaron. I just love this. Like, you can see people are happy. They're enjoying the process. You know, we want you to win. We want you to win. And so enjoy the process, have a conversation. These are some of the questions that you can ask. This is, something we can go in and break down. Who am I? What time is it? Where am I? What surrounds me? What are the given circumstances? What are the relationships? What do I want? Big question. What do I want for this character? What does the character want through this storyline? What is in my way? What is keeping me from getting to my end goal? What do I get? What do I get? What do I want? Coming back at me, and ask these questions to help you focus on the details of the scene, your character. All of these types of questions for you, the deeper that you can go and understand who you are, the better off you kind of come in and you just kind of work. You know, when I would work with John Kirby and we would prepare for things, it was always like, are your parents married? Did you grow up in a two-parent home? Did they have money? Did they not have money? Did they go to church? Did they not go to church? Were you in a small town or a big city? Like, you start to develop those kind of things, and all of a sudden you're kind of going in, and then when you go in, you understand who you are and where you're going. Maybe you come from a really poor town and you're given an opportunity to go to the big city. So what are you going in, fighting up against? Because people that come in from there, a lot of times they feel unworthy. They don't maybe have as much education. They might not have. So now all of a sudden you bring all those things in, right? I get excited about this stuff, sorry. This is one of the screen grabs from the movie that I just directed, Identity Crisis, and I just flipped out over this. I love the color, but you can see like all these pieces. Hopefully you can see it a little bit on some of these screens here. I'm not sure you can. But colors, wardrobe, makeup, everything plays a part in a character. Even this machine that we were using. And so, it's just fun to see what you get to bring to life. Breaking down a script and memorization, if you guys want to take a screen grab of that. I'm not going to go through all of those, but I think these are really important parts of your tools. You've got to be an actor that's really, really diving into the craft of what you're doing. This is a craft. It's not an overnight, I'm going to go get a job. It's breaking down scripts, it's understanding characters, and it's learning how to memorize your line. And let me tell you what, when you're on a feature film, Justin, Amber, when you guys, and Micah, and Isabel, all you guys, when you're on a feature film and you've got, how many pages that you have to learn, if you come in unprepared and unready, you're up against a whole lot of stuff going on, right? Look who shows up, Miss Micah. I love to see different scenes and people that go through, and it's always fun to see people I love on screen arrive on set mentally, physically, and spiritually ready to go. Shine bright as you meet your first crew member of the day. Rest is important. 8 hours of sleep if you can get it. Make sure that you're spending time with the Lord. Make sure you're physically active. Make sure you're eating the right foods. I know it all sounds a little strange right now, but it's really important because when it comes to 12-hour days, and then you got to go back and you've got to get ready again for the next day. If you're not eating, if you're not getting some activity and you're not spending time with the Lord, all of a sudden it starts going like this, and it goes very quickly. And you want it to go the other way because you want to be able to not only do your job, but you want to be a bright light for Christ, right? Next, Ashley, loved watching Unplanned because Ashley was really great in understanding where her character was coming from and where it was going. The tools. Here's a little bit of the tools that I put together. Education. And man, I can't tell you enough. Go and study these things. It is important to have them all in your toolbox. Professional assets, headshots, demo reels, home studio, self-tapes, clips. I'm going to go through that here for a second. Acting websites for auditions, actors kits. People go, what? What's an actor's kit? You should show up with an actor's kit. Nude garments, anything that you wear underneath your gear. I always come with maybe a fake ring or maybe a watch or something that works with my character. When we were working on Lifemark, Dawn plays Melissa, and there was things that she was still trying to figure out, but when she'd come to set just as Dawn, she'd have all these, like, her jewelry and stuff on, and I was like, well, there's your character. Because that's who she was, and that's who her character was. And so she wouldn't have had some of those things, and so when she put her own gear on, she could kind of walk in and all of a sudden she's like, I still feel good about me. Like, I just brought a part of who I am to this character, So there's a lot going on there, but you should always have an actor's kit, a small suitcase, and you should always bring your makeup and hair items with you as well. It is very important because accidents happen, and if you get to set and you don't have some of the tools and maybe there's a car accident or something goes on, or maybe there's X amount of actors, or you're on a smaller set or whatever, you need to be able to facilitate and understand what you need to do to put all of this together so that you can still go out and do your job. Your kit will grow as you learn, and you can add to it. I think somebody needs to do a whole class on a set kit. Just a few movies that I think are all of us, we get excited about watching. I'm going to show you guys a couple things here really quick. So, man, it goes fast. Okay, what can I show you? Let me go through this really quick. There's different websites. This is a website here. It's called demoreel.com. It's a really interesting site because if you're not trying, now a lot of times you're going to have actors access in different places or your own website, right? This is a professional I'm going to show you in a minute. This is a really good friend of mine. She uses this site. It's very easy for her. Her name is Emily Rose. Some of you may recognize her. She is actually a Christian, and she works in primarily secular stuff. She was on a television show for years called Haven. She's been on Grey's Anatomy. She's been on quite a few different things. But you can take and put up your shots, and then you can also put on your demo reels. Now, listen, you have to have a reel in this day and age. And you can go work with a Justin and Amber type where you can actually go out and facilitate and shoot something. Very important. You cannot get away with not having one. I'm going to just show a brief second of hers here.
2 large bore IVs, cefazolin, packed RBCs, and a morphine drip.
Who are you?
I'm Lieutenant Commander Rachel Scott. I'm the new trauma surgeon.
She was a top combat surgeon in Iraq, but now she'll face an even tougher battlefield. Emily Rose.
An annoying beeping means he's still alive, right?
You know what? I should probably get out of here.
We're staying focused on her. We're seeing different dynamic characters that she's rolling through, and it's quick. And because the casting director, I loved it, Bev says, sometimes she only works, you know what, it was 30 seconds? 30 seconds, you better catch their attention really quick. So she has all of her stuff on that. Then we go into another tool that all of casting uses. It's called Actors Access. And if you have an agent, this is where they're going to have you put most of your work. You're going to also, once again, you're going to have headshot resume. You're going to have demo reels, and you're going to have clips. Those clips will be comedy, drama. There'll be different ones that you can actually submit to when you're submitting for a character. There is the faith-based casting. You can go on here and look for it. Look who's on there. A happy face that we all love. Here's the IMDb. I'm going to show you this now. I think it's very important that you invest in the IMDb Pro because you have to be able to, especially as Christians, we want to know who's making what they've made before, and what the expectation is. Because, you know, you may just decide right away you're not going to take anybody. You're not going to go do their... You're not going to go do the audition. Really quick, last thing I'm going to show you. It was really interesting. This young lady submitted for a project, and when I found out a little bit of her background, what I thought was really interesting is that she started acting, and she went in and she literally studied for a whole year before she actually even submitted to any type of auditions. And she had not been on a set really ever before, so she went in and she actually put together a couple scenes. And so what I thought was interesting is she looks youthful, they've lit her well, she pops, she sounds really good, and just kind of an interesting
Hi, my name is
here.
Caroline Gregory. I'm 17 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm 5 foot. Hi, my name is Caroline Gregory. I'm 17 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm 5'2".
Hey,
What's up?
this was
If you were to listen to this whole thing, you'd go, oh, I get why she did that. So think about those things, the intro, the outro. Very simple, but you can see, look how simple this is. But this is what came across with her headshot. And I was like, oh, I want to see this girl. Okay. I have given you, hopefully, a lot of information. I'm going to open it up. I know we don't have very long, so I'm going to try to get at least a few questions in and hopefully give you a few more things in your toolbox. Okay. Right here. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Hello. If you don't have a lot of experience or things to pull from for auditions, do you have sources that you recommend to get good monologues or scripts that you should use for audition tapes?
As far as you mean the pieces that you're going to use? Okay, so my suggestion in that, and that's a great question, my suggestion is you go in and when you're working with certain acting coaches, a lot of times they'll have those types of pieces for you. You can also find some monologues that maybe work for you online. But if I were to say right now, like, if you need to make sure you have that demo reel or at least a clip of yourself, your acting coaches should have something for you that they can put on tape. Amber and Justin probably have a plethora of information that fits you and your personality to put on tape for you. So that's how I would go about it. I used to study, when I did it, which was years ago, with getting my pieces together, I went online and found a couple monologues that really resonated with me. And if I didn't have anything else, I did that, or I pulled also sides from maybe a series that I really liked or a character that I related with that I could use. And don't put profanity or any of those things into any of your demo reel stuff. If it comes into a script and you pull something from a show and all of a sudden there's a word there, don't use it. Is that answer? Okay. Whoop. Yes.
So this question is about the IMDb Pro. A problem that I've run into is because a lot of my films are foreign films.
Yep.
They don't always have a page because in China they have their own platform called Baidu Baike. So for someone that's going and looking at my page, it might not show, all of the things that I've done. What would be your suggestion on that? I know that you can create pages. I just don't know if as an actor I have the right to do that, even though I know all of the information and all of the people that are involved in the project.
Have you been on IMDb Pro before and
Yes.
looked up your projects?
Yes.
And they're not there?
Some of them are, but I would say more of them are not.
Well, that's a good question. I think if you put them on your own site and you can, get people to go there or to an actor's access and you have your resume intact and some of your clips. I don't know. Bev, I'm going to...
Yeah, so you can go in, how it shows up is you'll see on some IMDb,
Yeah.
You'll see on some IMDb pages, there's the credits that link to other projects that are listed on, but then sometimes there's credits that have a little red asterisk next to them, which denotes that they were self-verified, meaning you said I did this, and they're putting the asterisk to say, we haven't verified this project, this person is telling us they did these projects. But to me, that's better than nothing, and if I looked at your page and saw these self-verified, but saw that they were foreign, then I would understand why. I would make the connection that these are projects that aren't U.S. releases, so you wrote them in yourself. But you do have that ability to do that.
Awesome. Brainiac. Thank you for her being here. Oh.
Most of the stuff that I've done has been on Facebook Live for my church, and I'm able to get the videos from that live. Do you suggest I put that in the reel or not? Because I haven't done too many on-screen stuff, but I've done a lot of on-stage stuff, and most of it is like recorded for me.
I would say no. I would say no. Anything that you put on your reel or a clip has to be as strong as you can possibly make it. And I would say most of those are probably far away. They're probably not going to give us an idea of what you can actually do. The best thing you can do is to go in and find yourself in an opportunity where you can actually record a couple clips. You can either be put in a scenario where you're in a scene and you're actually, because they do it so well now that, we don't know if it's a feature film or not that you've been in, right? But it's so good, and they focus on you, and so we watch you the whole time. Or you can see like what Caroline did, where at least there's something that we can see you and what you can do. So that's what I would say. So don't put those up. Go get yourself a couple pieces. You don't need a lot. This was her only piece of work. And so it's just really the kind of quality in what you have. So your headshot and getting that 1 or 2 pieces. Go work with somebody that can help you do that. Okay.
I was just wondering if you could expound a little bit on what it meant on your list that said, know your brand.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really important for us to understand who we are as an actor and what our brand is. I mean, I've met, a lot of young women who are, and this is a great thing, especially in today's culture, that are more character type of driven, talent. Now, does that alleviate them from leads? No, but just to think about, like, who are you and what kind of things do you really, like, where do you fit into the dynamics of that? There are just things that I'm never going to get cast for. They're not, and it's not, hopefully they're not evaluating just my acting, but they are looking at specifics of, like, do I have a certain look from the early 1900s, or do I have a certain, we can always put those things up, but I always say try to understand your brand. And when you are able to understand that a little bit better, your headshots will reflect it. I think even your pieces of work on your reel will reflect that. Find your strength. Doesn't mean you don't step out of the box and try to do some of those things that may not maybe fit you as much, but I think it's just kind of understanding who you are, what characters you might get cast for more, and then you can really focus on being the best at those. My suggestion.
Hi, question about auditioning and age.
In what?
Age.
Okay.
So you have to know your brand, you have to know your range as well for that. So can you give some advice of whether it's okay to audition for something that's a little bit younger or older, in faith knowing that if they want you, they want you? Or should we be patiently watching for the right role? or how to do that while you're evaluating the right roles, but they want somebody at a certain age and you're not in that age gap, but you are close to the gap?
I'm going to let Bev take a snap at that, and then I'll kind of step into the backside of that.
Sorry, she couldn't shut me up. I was like, no. So from a casting director's point of view, for you submitting, and it happens all the time, but what it tells me is you're either unrealistic about the age range that you play, which is a negative.
Yeah.
It tells me sometimes, like, if you're submitting for, 16 years old and you clearly are not, it tells me you're out of touch. And that's not good, because what you want to be seen as, I know who I am, I know what age range I am, and I fit these roles. So honestly, I've seen male submissions for a female role because they just want to be seen or they want to catch my eye. I'm telling you, it's negative. Yeah, and age is the same thing. And just because you feel 16 doesn't mean you look 16, so.
Right. If I could for the rest of my life, I'd be 25. Okay, I'm just saying 25, but that's just not the reality. And I do think that there's something also that comes across, and I think also do feel comfortable about where you are. There's also a place and a space that God has given you, certain things that you've learned that you can actually bring to your performance that actually really does elevate who you are. And sometimes even the younger folks have a harder time reaching some of those because they haven't really experienced those things. So allow yourself to bring those into your performance as well, and be excited about where you're at. Yeah, that's good.
We've got time for one last question over here, and then we'll still get to talk with her later after the session.
So I have a crew background, and it comes onto my IMDb. Should I delete that, or does that help or hinder my actor's IMDb? Or is there a way to separate the two?
Well, and that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, for me, I have all my stuff on there. And nowadays, it kind of takes and it says, like, this is television, or, there's a new format, too. When you pull up IMDb, it gives, like, film, television, acting, and it kind of breaks it down by credits. I personally, like for me, all of my credits are on there. My resume now, whether it's on Actors Access or wherever it is and whatever I'm pushing up to the casting director or to the producing team, that'll be all of my acting. And they can jump on there and look too. I don't know. For me, it's never hindered me in looking at talent. No, Bev, yeah, so she's shaking her head no. I actually think for me personally, I go, oh, I like it that she's been on the crew. She's going to know exactly what she's coming onto my set, and she's going to be prepared because she's been there and done that. Yeah.
I can say one thing, which I'll yell so I don't need a mic. But I can say one thing, which is sometimes if you're doing a smaller film where everybody's doing everything, it might be better for you to have your name as the crew member or whatever you're doing and use maybe your name and a middle name to act like choose some way to differentiate so it's not, like
If you mean if,
this, Shari Rigby makeup, Shari Rigby wardrobe,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just so that there is a differentiation of, I'm an actor, I did these other things. So you can do that either with a maiden name, a middle name, whatever your brand is as an actor, maybe you use the other name as your crew member. That's the one way on IMDb to build
You can build it.
I don't think you need to, but from a billing credit standpoint, you may want to differentiate.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that in that sense is, excuse me, I do think a lot of the smaller budgets, a lot of times people come in and they act and then all of a sudden they're asked to like do crafty. That's a really good way to make sure that in that process, like Bev was saying, like your billing, that becomes a different thing. So if you're on a set and you're doing multiple jobs, figure out what that might look like for you. So.
Shari, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time sharing with us.
Yay!